Cough, cough. Right. Well, welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Inworld Review. This is a show where we bring you news and discussion about the metaverse. And in particular, the hypergrid, which is a load of interconnected virtual worlds that comprise the open metaverse. We do our little bit to discuss virtual reality interfacing and even a bit of that old stuff called surround vision, as I call it. So we've got a quite wide berth here. And basically, for those of you who don't know what we call the metaverse is, it's a world of interconnected spaces that you can view or enter, I should say, really, online, where you can communicate, collaborate, create, and basically it all operates in real time. It's not a passive experience because you're actually in the world mixing with other people, largely in the form of avatars. Anyway, that's my brief description for the week. And before I go any further, I'm going to introduce you to the folks we've got here today. On my left, as ever, we've from Hypergrid Business, we've got my regular co-host, Maria Korolov. Welcome, Maria.
Well, thanks, Mel. Always a pleasure to be here.
And next to Maria, of course, our other regular is also multitasking on operating all our cameras too, and that's James Outloud. Welcome, James.
Oh, thank you, Mel. I sure enjoyed being here. Yep.
Great. And on my other side, which, let me see, that's to my left, to your right. Next to me, we have a chap called Frank Avatar, better known as Frank Corsi, from Atek Grid. Welcome, Frank.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you.
And next to him, we've got Toni Moore, also from Atek Grid. So welcome, Toni.
Hi, how are y'all doing?
We're absolutely fine, thank you. And hopefully it's going to stay that way. Right, now, I should distinguish between you here just before we go any further. Frank, you were basically running Atek Grid until recently, and you're very much the techie person behind it. Whereas, Toni, you are actually the new owner of the grid, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, we'll be, I guess we'll be discussing a bit about that change of ownership and reorientation and all the stuff about Atek Grid. And since you are our guests, I'm going to come to you first, so to speak. We will leave our news headlines and stuff like that for a little bit later after we've caught up with everything you're doing. So maybe you'd like to tell us first what brought about and what is that nature of the change of ownership and future plans on Atek. I'll leave it to the two of you to decide who wants to take that one.
Okay, I'll start off if you'd like.
Yeah.
Atek Grid originally was built out of a need for people to connect to an open grid where they can connect from their home computer or their office or business computer or a rented server and have virtual land. At the time when we originally created Atek Grid, the OS grid, which was the most popular open grid, was shut down. And it was down, I believe, for about 8 months at that time. So somewhere in the middle of that time frame is where Atek Grid came to life, built out of that need for people to want to have an open to connect grid that was accessible through the United States.
Right.
At the time when we originally created Atek Grid, my company, which I'm partners with Leslie Harris, is called 3D Virtual Web, and we also own CloudServe, which is a virtual world cloud hosting server provider. We wanted the grid to be established, but we didn't want to operate the grid. So we had a partner at the time who came in and then was running the inside of the grid. We were running the servers, and then things changed, and the partner and I, we parted ways, and our company continued operating Atek Grid. But things got really busy for us at 3D Virtual Web. We're doing many other projects for Virtual World City and other types of virtual world projects. So we didn't have as much time to dedicate to the Atek Grid as we wanted to. Knowing that the Atek Grid had a lot of good features, I was searching for someone to buy the grid. And then Toni Moore is a friend of mine that I've known since the 80s. and her team, which her daughter and a few other people that she's with, wanted to get involved in the virtual world, and we thought it would be a great match. So Toni then purchased Atek Grid from us. We still operate the servers as they are a hosting client right now. We operate the servers and do all the maintenance on the servers for them.
So Toni, how does it feel to be boss of your own grid? Put it bluntly.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to, having this place grow. I'm learning also, 'cause this is all new to me. But Frank is telling me how to, helping me along also. So.
Showing you the ins and outs. And now is the change of ownership, and this obviously probably isn't really going to affect day-to-day business, but are you changing your structure in any way, or appealing to new audiences, or et cetera, really? Anything on the agenda, so to speak, in the changes?
We've just got a very big trade place where people could come and, do trade shows and, still come and visit the place.
Right. And you did point out, Frank, when you were talking there, but whether some of our viewers would have fully understood, I'm not sure, so I'll go over it. We are very familiar with OS Grid, a totally non-commercial grid. Some people call it a developer's grid. And it is one of the unique grids, well, probably not unique, but seemingly unique. You often go there and you will find a region offline, not because the grid's offline, but because within that grid, there are a lot of self-hosted mini grids, and they use OpenSIM as an addressing system, as it were. And I know that Atek Grid works a very similar way, doesn't it? So you have a lot of regions in Atek Grid which are actually kind of independently run regions that may or may not be online at a given time, depending on your client, I guess.
Exactly. The way it works is the people who connect to Atek Grid are normally people that either work with a home computer or people who rent a server. They want to have the virtual world land, but they don't want to be part of a closed environment or a closed grid, as there are many closed grids out there. So they will be able to run their own land and do their building and experimenting and whatever type of projects that they're trying to do. And they can just connect to the grid, and they can connect whenever they want. They can have their server online for a day or 2 days. What we're trying to do in Atek Grid, since we have over 4,000, 256 size regions, we're trying to weed out all the people that haven't been there in a long time and start to clear out some of these regions that are gone. In the process of doing that, we're trying to contact people with the best way we can from the email addresses that they used when they signed up, and verify that if your land is active, restart your server to show us that it has a recent connection.
So you don't do like an automatic thing, like if it hasn't been up for a month, we're going to take down the reservation, and you have to, when you reconnect, if the map spot is taken, you'll have to get a new map spot?
No, OS Grid doesn't do that either, as far as I know.
No, they do. They do just. Well, what they do is they don't have it automated. They have a manual system, but again, they look at all the old regions that haven't been activated for a certain period of time. I think they said it was a month, and then they clear out all those regions from the map. So
Right,
they don't
that's exactly
contact
what we're
anybody individually. They don't contact anybody. They just wipe them all off.
Well, we were doing that originally, but then we noticed that, like, I was in the process of, over the weekend, deleting some regions that we didn't think were online anymore. And 2 of the regions kept popping up in the database after I already deleted them. And I'm like, how are they popping up again? Because the people were actually fired them regions back up again.
Oh, wait.
So-
That's a good thing. That's a good thing, that they should be up in the database.
Correct.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be in the database, but I didn't think they were, because the database, the statistics are not all accurate. Some of these regions were showing that they haven't had any connectivity for a long time.
Ah, I see. Okay. So,
But if nobody lands on the region or walks on the region, then that's what triggers the activity. But if the region's online, sitting there
okay.
on the server, and nobody's
Gotcha.
walking around on it, the region is still active. And when I delete it out of the database, it pops right back on again.
So you don't check for the connection between the server and the region, but for activity on the region.
That's the only thing the database shows is the activity on the region.
Okay.
I presume it doesn't take up. I mean, you're talking about coordinates, aren't you, on the grid? And
that's correct.
I presume whether a region's online or offline, it doesn't really add the actual detail about coordinates. Doesn't add any real weight to the server. It's just when things are online that the weight in the server comes. So.
Well, it doesn't affect the servers at Atek Grid at all because all these regions are running on outside servers. Servers at their home or rented servers that they may have or at their school or university or something like that. So it's not affecting the Atek Grid at all, other than the stats showing a larger amount of regions that might not be accurate. And I'm trying to accommodate Maria and keep them stats as accurate as possible.
I want to mention something to our readers, maybe if they don't know about this. But what's deleted in this cleanup is just the region reservation, not the full region itself. All the data for the region and the content for the region is on a host computer, for example, somebody's own server or a home computer. And when they reconnect that region, all their stuff is still there. Plus their inventories and the asset database, none of that is touched. So none of the stuff you have in your inventory, none of the stuff you have in the region disappears. Just that little map reservation.
Yeah, it's the coordinates is the only thing that would be affected there, I gather. And the reason I asked is I'm just thinking, as you know, Maria, we've sort of reinitiated the group that's preparing OSCC this year.
Sorry for missing the last meeting.
Oh yeah, never mind. But obviously they have their own grid for the conference. But let's say there was another conference or something that had their grid attached to Atek, then it might be that they only do. It's only in use once a year. So what I was asking there is, if the coordinates can just stay there. Because it's all on an independent server, then it's really probably no sweat to keep them on the map, so to speak. If you know they're just occasional users.
Well, it keeps somebody else from getting onto that land spot. So it might annoy other region users who might want that spot and see it as available, but they can't put anything there.
It's like a big grid.
Yeah, Maria's correct. Yeah, Maria, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're around the landing area. We're going around the landing area, and that's what we're clearing out. Not the people that are way far off the map somewhere. We're not really worried about them people. We're worried about the people that are right nearby the main hub, so to speak. That way people can activate them regions with more active land. Therefore, when people log in, they don't see abandoned locations on the map or land that's not there. So we're clearing up that.
Yeah, another problem that comes up is somebody might want to have guaranteed empty land around their region. They don't want any neighbors, so they will activate regions all around them and then turn them off. So the grid database thinks there's still regions there and has those spots reserved, but there's no plans to ever actually bring anything up. So you have a lot of reserved land where nobody can do anything, but nothing's ever going to be there.
Well, Atek Grid has a solution for that. We actually have on the Atek Grid control panel where people can purchase reservations, where they could just buy spots on the grid map, and we'll eliminate people from using them spaces, but they don't have to actually put a server and occupy that. And them reservations normally will not show up on our stats for active regions. They'll show up on our stats.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, our stats have a spot called land reservations. I'm looking at right now, we have 5 people with reservations now. And then there's another 61 regions that are pending. Pending means I deleted them, but they may be coming back. So they're in a pending state. Yeah, there's a little bit of technology there to it, but our grid map, we're trying to clear out everything around the home landing area to give other people opportunities to come and put their regions in place.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, where we are now actually is we're on the Great Canadian Grid, but Metaworld is actually way off in the Northwestern Ocean, away from anybody else. And most people don't even know we're here half the time unless they've got reason to discover us. But, if we were getting a bigger and bigger chunk right near the main grid landing area, we would be in the way of other things. So, yeah.
Correct.
So
sometimes
totally take that.
Yeah, sometimes people would come to us and say, why is this region not working? Or they go to a region and there's a lot of lag, or they go to a region and they have problems with their scripts not working. And we have to inform them that the Atek grid itself is only 9 regions in the center with water all around it. Other than that, all the other regions are self-hosted.
Right.
And some people might be running, on slow servers or laptops or whatever the case may be.
You do actually host quite a very large number of regions, don't you? In total, I forget the figure.
Over 4,000 in size, yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. So that's a lot of regions.
Yeah, right now there's 4,365. I think we're down a little bit because we deleted about 1,000 and then some came back. Right.
Right. So quite a sizable area for people to explore. Well, if the relevant regions are online, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, Toni, you mentioned. I know this is something Tangle Grid do actually quite a lot. You mentioned the idea of trade shows as something you're hoping to introduce. Toni?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, right. Okay, you mentioned trade shows as something new. I mean, presumably when people come to Atek Grid, they are obviously landing in the central area.
Yes.
And there will be various guides for them to show other regions, and presumably you have something that shows whether a region, if it points to other regions, it will show whether they're online or not. But you mentioned something about trade shows and things. Is this an area that you plan to deploy as Atek Grid, as it were, part of the main grid?
Yeah, it's right next to the landing where you come in at.
Right. Again, have you got a first trade show, the theme or anything later?
Nothing yet. Everything is still, we're still working on everything.
Still getting it all up and running. Well, fair enough.
They're rebuilding a lot of the home landing region because some of the buildings that were there from Atek were purchased or built by people who didn't grant us the permission to trade them buildings to somebody else. So we took some things down that Toni and her team are now rebuilding. And so that's what they're doing now. They're rebuilding. They're learning the system. I'm teaching them how the control panel works, how the members of Atek Grid, when they log in, they're automatically added as a friend with the staff. They're also added into the Atek group. They also have the ability to buy currency. The currency only works within the 9 regions of Atek Grid, and the currency doesn't work on the outside regions. So these are the things we're teaching Toni and her team. But Toni is rather new to this. She's been in the virtual world for probably 6 or 7 months now. So it's rather new. But I'm going to be standing by.
We have to start somewhere.
Yes.
Those are 2 very interesting points for me from a business and legal perspective.
Yes.
That's something that a lot of grids forget. When you switch owners, or you move one grid into another grid, that you have to be really careful with the licenses. And that's happened, I think, with Everworlds twice, where people thought that they could just move regions from one grid to another. But you have to be really careful about all the licenses for the content on those regions. By default, the license terms are for the original grid only. So you might want to update your terms of service if you have a commercial grid and you do plan to sell it, to give you the right to do it, and make sure obviously that your creators understand what you did, so you're not shocking anybody by this.
In other words,
Correct.
you have full transfer permissions across grids.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but not for end users, but for the owner. Like
Yeah, true.
when you post content into a grid, you're already giving the grid a whole bunch of permissions because they have to be able to show your content to visitors. You have to be able to
Sure.
see them on the screen. You have
Yeah.
to be able to take a copy of your own content into your own inventory or move it around. To do all these things, the grid is doing them for you, so it has to have permissions to access your content. You might want to have backups of everything. The grid has to have permission to make those backups of all the content.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
so if you're planning ahead for selling your grid, and you're setting up a new grid, you might want to have that from the very beginning and make sure users understand that if you sell the grid, that the rights to the content go with the grid. So, for example, if somebody buys Facebook, all the messages don't get deleted, you know.
Yeah.
So this is something that benefits both the users and the grid owners because they get to keep all their stuff as it was, even if the grid changes ownership. They don't have everything suddenly vanish.
Yeah. You do get this in business anyway. For example, people will want to buy up a company for its trademark or its name, but won't actually want the assets. On the other hand, they may really want the assets, and they'll be paying a good deal more to get the assets too. So, yeah, it's you got to think of all the aspects of something, especially if it's a living community. You've got to take everybody into account.
Yeah, people sometimes forget this in virtual worlds, that this is something that you need to prepare for. You might not always own the grid.
Right. As instance with Atek Grid, the main building that was there with a big clock tower, it was made by a group of guys for me back in one of my older grids. And when the corporation that owned Atek Grid was 3D Virtual Web, now that corporation has changed to Florida Web Council, which is Toni Moore's company. Toni Moore didn't have rights to a lot of them buildings that were granted to me. So therefore, I had to remove everything, and that's why they're rebuilding now.
Yeah.
Talking of removing things, I also noticed, I mentioned to you before we came on air, in fact, that I was there literally 7 days ago, just before last week's show, having a look around. And I was very curious to come across. I know this is something that I guess would interest Maria too, though I gather it didn't really take off. I'm just clear if it would have any future. I came across one building in your, not on the landing region, but in the main hub, so to speak, which was Virtual Worlds IP Association. Now, I mentioned this to you earlier, and you told me vaguely about it. That sounded like an interesting idea. I gather it hasn't really taken off, but do you have any plans to get that kind of thing running again, or maybe tell people what it was?
Yes, it is a project that our company, 3D Virtual Web, Leslie Harris and I own part of. It is a separate corporation. The original founder of that project was a gentleman who was an IP attorney, and he since passed away a few years back. And the project kind of went stale, but it's VWIPA.com for Virtual World IP Association. And what it is, it's an intellectual property registry, kind of like a trademark or copyright type office where the virtual world products are registered. That way, in case they do go to court, they have a proof that on a certain date they registered that product with the registry. I don't know if Maria's ever seen that or not before.
I remember talking to you about it before, and I didn't understand the benefits of it either. There's plenty of mechanisms already in the world for registering IP rights. Plus, of course, your copyright is yours from the minute you create the work itself. So, and for one quick and easy way of doing this, by the way, for anybody out there, take a video of your build, put it up on YouTube.
Right, you got to make a first notice of something, yeah.
Right, so put it up on YouTube, take some pictures, put them up on Flickr, any third-party site that has a date stamp on it. If you put it up on your own website, of course, you can change the date on the post. But if you put it up on a third-party site where you can't change the date after the fact, then that's you can point to and say, look, I posted this video 5 years ago. I obviously, that was long before, you sued me. So
another thing that VWIPA does besides that is it allows you to create product lines. within the system, where you can say, this is a product line of T-shirts. And in this product line, I have 30 T-shirts. And that whole product line could therefore be licensed to someone else through the website itself. And that way there would be terms and all the contracts and agreements between each other would be part of this website.
Okay.
Or you could just have a contract.
Well, you could, but I'm just saying this is a website that was created to accommodate all of that in one umbrella.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's a bit like a brokerage, isn't it?
I would recommend that people who make contracts keep their own copies of all the contracts.
Some people don't even have contracts, where this website would allow them to put in the name of the person that they're licensing the product to and what term and what conditions, and the site itself would generate a legal document based on templates.
I also
have a lot of that assistance.
I also have some free templates up on my website for copyright contracts specifically for virtual worlds.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an ongoing project. Now found it, and it's something that's been sitting around for about 4 years, and it's something that we may someday get going, but we haven't yet.
Right.
So trust me to dig up the archive.
Yeah, it's been sitting for at least 4 years.
Yeah.
Maybe longer.
Okay, so now the one thing I want to know is for a new grid, the big thing is the activity, the social aspects, or at least if you have a social grid. If you have a nonprofit grid, then obviously your goals are, totally unrelated. Or a school grid, your goals are to have classes. So for social grid, you need to bring people into your events. And I was wondering if you had any kind of marketing plan, Toni, for what would be the social differentiator for your grid from other grids? So
can I interrupt, because you can probably answer this in the same question? Somebody in our live stream audience, Tangle Grid, in fact, Tangle Grid ban? What does that mean? They're asking, what does it do, this trade show? Can people buy things?
Interesting, because you can't buy things directly on Tangle Grid for their expos. You can only send people to stores wherever they are. You can have teleport buttons there or give them links, but you can't sell things directly on the expo site. But if you guys have payments set up, can people buy things directly at your expos?
It hasn't been something that we've talked about. Previously, we've had 2 other trade shows that happened in Atek Grid, and both of them were for real life companies. One of them was for a barbecue industry, where people came in and were basically showcasing their real life barbecue products. It was mainly designed for real life businesses. And the other one was basically for a group of people that, let me see, I'm trying to remember what they even did, but it was another real life company that came in and had a trade show. So not yet has there been a virtual world trade show for virtual products, but normally at the trade shows, like in real life, it not really a place to make sales directly, but to make contacts and do networking. And that's what we're anticipating this to be. But there will be real life companies going in there for real life trade shows. So the main market, the focus will be for real life business.
So that's very different from what you see in OpenSim right now. We don't have very much real world business activity at all anywhere on the public grids.
Well, Atek Grid always was dedicated to the real life business. We had some name brand retail stores in Atek Grid before as well that we're building. And I think you also reported on some of them connections that we had with Cisco and Equifax before.
Did that ever turn into anything with Second Life? I mean, with OpenSim traffic being so low, and the difficulty of getting into a grid for the first time, really annoying for some people. Even Second Life couldn't get it to work with their much bigger install base and easier viewer setup. How are you able to do that on Atek?
We're not doing it on Atek now. We have another platform that we built that we're working with these real life retailers building another infrastructure using OpenSim that we've modified. It has nothing to do with the hypergrid or the normal OpenSim community, but it's still using OpenSim software, and it's a totally different project. The real life companies found a little bit of conflict of interest with dealing with the OpenSim community back when Atek Grid was running really strong. So they asked to move their testing and their development into a more private platform. And we built a new platform that they're all working within now.
There are, I do know there are actually quite a lot of grids on running Open Simulator who, you know, for reasons like that are deliberately not on hypergrid. It may be R&D, in which case it's not a public thing, or, you know, they just don't have a public interfacing need, so they're not available to the public, which is fair. I mean, it's still more use of Open Simulator, which is good.
Correct.
So Maria, any more?
So what's going to happen on Atek Grid then? If the real world conferences are moved off to this other platform, what kind of conferences and events are you going to be holding on Atek now?
No, we have the development and testing that we're doing with real life businesses on another platform. But when these real life businesses want to have a public show or public trade show, they're going to be doing that in Atek Grid.
Okay. Again,
so they can
why?
basically advertise to their customers or their vendors or people they want to attend to go to Atek Grid, and they can log in and create an avatar, because the platform we're working on now for them is somewhat private, where their developers go in and work, and they have their own hosted servers, some of them, and some of them we rent them servers, and it's not open to the public.
So we're back to the first question. For the conferences on Atek Grid, so you have real world people and who are not OpenSim users, who are real world customers, who are outside of OpenSim, and you want to get them, you know, equipped in OpenSim and get their avatars and get them logged in. This is like an extremely difficult process that nobody else has been able to successfully do so far. What are your plans for doing that?
We've done it. We've been doing it, and that's why Atek Grid, the sign up process, is much different than a lot of the other virtual worlds, where it does make you friends with the people who you need to be friends with automatically. It does put you in groups. It does give you messages. You are wearing the clothing you select, and your inventory has things already placed in your inventory. We've had focus groups where we've talked to people, and of course with Cisco we had many focus groups as well, and they helped us design the system so people can log in and easily find where they're going. Like now the trade show building is right next to the landing point, and we're going to be adding signs directing people there.
Do you have automatic viewer download and configuration?
They have viewer download similar to the other grids have. We have our own viewer that they can download, and it's already pre-configured, yes.
Okay. Back in the early days, Kitely had a viewer that basically the first time you signed up, it would if you didn't have one viewer already installed, it downloaded it for you, it set it up, and it logged you in. So you can click on the website button and you go into the world without having anything in the middle. They had to drop that somewhere halfway through because of different changes in the browser, and they never really found a way to do that. Do you guys have anything similar?
We're working with the guys with Frame. They used to be, I forget their name, but they had a virtual world application set up. But we've been working with them, as well as working with some server companies that we work with, where we're having some special servers that have video cards in them, the new NVIDIA Grid video card system, and we're writing software to have basically a web-based viewer that'll work similar to the Frame.
So you're talking about the Bright Canopy one?
Correct, the Bright Canopy one, yes. We worked with them several times, but the pricing model that they had wasn't fitting for what we were doing because of the fact that they use the Amazon servers.
Right, because you have to have servers running for each viewer if you're streaming from a viewer. So
your idea really is you will, instead of Amazon's cloud servers, you will have your own servers equipped with the graphics cards that will run it. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, we're working on that right now. That is something we've been working on.
That is very interesting. Can you please send me an announcement when you're ready to go with something like that?
Sure.
Because that'd be very unique.
Sure. When we're ready, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Getting virtual worlds somehow, lightweight or not, onto the web is a major task, because but I just see it opening up so many avenues if it's possible, because you could Facebook a friend and say, come visit me, and send them to a web page that will make it easy for them to visit you. They might not have the full whack experience, but at least come round to my place sometime, the gist of it. And
Right.
I like the idea of a back end too, which you would obviously have with Atek, where I often describe Second Life, for example, as the high street of the metaverse. Not that anything you can buy there you can take anywhere, but it's full of storefronts and front end kind of things for avatars. OpenSim is much more the sort of place where it's the back end, R&D, or where you build things ready to deploy elsewhere. And it seems to me with these companies you work with, you're providing them with their private back end and probably a fairly seamless function to front end if they want one.
Yes, we do. We have a very good front end system for the real life businesses that we're working with, where they can do everything on the web control panel. They can add servers, they can add simulators, they can make their own regions, they can rename them, they have their own grid maps, they can handle all the backups, restoring. We also have automatic restarting of regions. If a region goes offline, every 15 minutes it's checked and it automatically restarts the region. The same with the simulators. It restarts simulators that happen to crash. There's a lot of things that we work on that angle. But Atek Grid is basically an open grid where anybody can come and do whatever they want. As far as events, I noticed, Maria, that was the second part of your question. The events are basically going to be similar to they were before in Atek Grid, where the residents that come in will set up clubs and different venues, whether they be book reading clubs or music clubs, and they will start having their own events, and Atek Grid will support that effort. But as far as Atek Grid itself, it only operates the 9 regions in the center, and although it will be sponsoring events that other people may want to present, but the presenters of the events are going to be the residents.
Sure.
Wait. Presenters of what events are going to be residents?
Like, for instance, Sheriff Dawn, if you remember her, she's around the virtual world. She's in Metropolis. She's in other grids. She used to hold many music events almost weekly in Atek Grid. There was a few other people. Doc Smirnoff had the campus, which the campus is still active. Doc Smirnoff's still in Atek Grid working and having clubs. We were in there the other day and we noticed he had an event going on there at his club in Atek Grid. So these things are still happening. We want to encourage people to use the notices that just show up on the website to let everybody know where the events are happening at. And we'll get more organization on that as well.
But also in terms of coming to events, things like that. Atek Grid itself, your core regions are obviously hypergrid enabled. I know that because I've been there. But as far as the regions that people self-host that come online and maybe online or off, are all those hypergrid enabled too, or is there an option for your tenants, so to speak, to be hypergrid enabled or not, as the case may be?
We give them a download package for our software similar to what OS Grid does, and they can go in and edit the configuration themselves and turn off hypergrid, but the basic download has hypergrid enabled.
Right. Okay. So it's there by default unless they don't want it. Great. Right. Okay, Maria, any other questions for our guests?
Well, yeah, I'm still curious about your positioning. So, are you going to have any particular focus or personality to the grid that's different? So, for example, Third Rock is known for its music events and its Rob Stock, and Franco Grid is known for its art festivals, and Craft is known for its Italians, whatever. Tangle Grid is known for the regular expos that they do every month, and some other grids are known like for the open source developers, like an OS Grid, or Kitely is known for the educators and the story hours and the nonprofits there. Do you have a particular personality or focus of the grid that you're going to be promoting that is going to be kind of help attract people to the grid, as opposed to, we're doing the same thing that every other grid is doing, but with a different name?
We're very similar to Metropolis and OS Grid. So basically, it's what the people want to do. Will support what they want to do. But since Atek Grid does have currency, it does have the ability to have some money transactions. So that makes it a little bit different than some of the other grids that are open to connect. Our control panel is very intuitive and easy to use. So people can go to the control panel and it gives them the OpenSim INI files, and all the files they need are automatically configured when they add land. And when they add land, they select it from the grid map. They click on select, they put in the name of their region, they select what size region they're going to put there, and it'll automatically create the files they need to put on their server. So some of them things that we're doing are more advanced, and we were told before many times that people like Atek Grid because it's so easy to get land established, where they don't have to be a real techie person. One thing Atek Grid is doing also is Atek Grid, Toni Moore's company, is now renting land, which we didn't exactly do before. We did it through CloudServe, but they're now renting land regions for $8.95 per month.
Okay. So for end users, the big difference is that you can connect regions, but you can also have shopping on those regions. Now, what currency do you guys support?
Game tokens. I'm amazed you asked that. Same money I've been using since 2008.
Do you have any plans to use a payment mechanism that's more widely used on a hypergrid, like either the Globits or PayPal or some other mechanism?
I've spoken with Christopher from Globits, and we have some talks together about working together, but nothing's been finalized.
Okay, keep me posted on that if there is, because I want to make it easy as possible for hypergrid travelers to spend money, when they travel.
Right.
And
well, as you know, my money does work in other grids. We've already had it in many grids before. It's just we backed off from that, and our business went a different direction. But our currency will work in other grids if we wanted it to.
Okay.
And we may go that direction. We may go that direction. As you know, OpenSim is slow during the summer, and around this time of year, it does pick up and become more popular, and more people start accessing the virtual world. So we'll, over the next maybe 6 or 8 months, things will evolve, and Atek Grid will take on its personality, and it'll become what it will become. People will make it famous for what it's going to be. We don't know yet, but we're hoping it's going to be good.
Do you accept Kitely Market deliveries?
Yes, exactly. They do.
Okay. James, have you got any questions for Frank and Toni by any chance?
No, nothing in particular. But wow, this is pretty exciting. Sounds like a great opportunities there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, well, if it's okay with you guys, I think we'll widen the discussion a little bit and look at sort of hypergrid news a bit. Hopefully you can hang around. We tend to go on this show for quite a while sometimes, various issues. Before I actually hand to Maria for all these lovely links I see to hypergrid business, I would note that a few days ago, Kitely.com posted a new blog about automatic world optimization and other improvements. And I'm sure Maria is going to cover this anyway, but Google Plus, googleplus.com, whatever, official announcement, Abbey Worlds and a new grid, as you may have found out, has been turned off. And of course, there is if I'll just press on that, I'm sure Maria's coming to it. But this was actually announcement about the introduction of digital leisure as a new grid. Log in digitalleisure.com. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Maria because she's got the bigger handful, so to speak.
Okay, so let's see. I wasn't here last week. Sorry about that. I was taking my kid to college. So I kind of missed out the opportunity to talk a little bit about all the stuff happening in Everworld. Let's save that for last because that's kind of that's going to be a little in depth.
Right.
I believe it.
Hopefully not too contentious because we want to stay out. There's so much nitpicking going on amongst these guys. I really want to avoid it. But yeah, carry on.
Yes. So Uh, we've got putting aside the Avi Labs and Avi Worlds and everything else. Um, People have been emailing me about starting a VR career, and I posted a little column about how to get that started with OpenSim. And this was somebody who wanted to get into VR and didn't have the opportunity to go to college and do internships and study all these things. So I suggested starting out with the Second Life and OpenSim tutorials for making things that you can sell on Kitely, because you can start having a little bit of income right away, and you can learn how to model things in 3D and how to build 3D environments, learn some LSL programming. All the tutorials are there. They start out very simple for people who don't know anything at all, like jumping right into Unity 3D programming
3D.
can be really, can be kind of scary, and especially for some of the higher end game development engines. But developing something in OpenSim where it's easy to cut and paste a script, like for example, I suggested starting with the swinging door. There's only 5 swinging doors available on the Kitely market, and there's like 200 in Second Life Marketplace. And the scripts are open source. You can download it, you can copy and paste it, you can tweak it. You can make your own nice little door design. It's something that requires minimal skills, and you can put something up and get it started right away. Building components are one of the top sellers on the Kitely market. There aren't enough choices for people, so you can get started right away. Do it, play around with more things. A lot of open source templates available. Linda Kelly, Damien Fate, and other people have been sharing things that you can use, and I've posted the links to some of those so that you can move up to mesh building. You can learn Blender. Again, lots of tutorials for newbies, for people who start out not knowing anything at all. You can get into it slowly, gently, and the whole time as you move along, you can sell things, develop a brand name reputation, customers, and then when you're ready to go into consulting, you can use that as a base to market yourself. I also recommended.
I have to say, I can guarantee too, not just in virtual worlds, but almost anywhere, there is nothing better than learning by taking stuff apart and trying to put it back together again, seeing what scripts are in it, seeing how you can reshape things.
Right.
And it's better than any amount of manuals. Just fiddle.
Right. And the thing I like about starting out here is you can do something very small, very easy, and get immediate feedback. You can have customers looking at it right away, produce something useful, and that kind of immediate feedback is really gratifying and can really help you move very quickly as you progress.
A new line in plywood boxes.
Yeah, exactly. There's people out there who need plywood boxes and don't want to mess around with pointing and clicking because that's so annoying.
Yeah.
Then I also recommended volunteering. There's several major open source projects for the viewers and the server side. They always need help writing documentation, debugging and testing. If you don't know how to code, you can start out with those kind of assistance and then slowly work your way, as you become trusted, you get to know the developers, start helping out with the code, and kind of develop that expertise that way and get yourself known globally as somebody who does stuff and is easy to work with. And then you can take those skills and move them into other 3D environments as well. So I like this as a very gentle on-ramp into VR that I recommend that people do try out. And there's somebody who's been emailing back and forth about exactly this. And we'll see if she's able to get something going. I'm really excited for her. Okay, so the U.S. Military, the U.S. Army's Moses Grid, announced that it will be turning to the Halcyon branch of OpenSim, and I posted a column by Douglas Maxwell, the guy who runs the project. Halcyon was open sourced by Inworlds about a year ago, and it's an offshoot of OpenSim from a couple of years back, more than a couple of years back. So it's kind of like OpenSim at its heart, but it's got kind of got added features to it, and it kind of went off in a different direction, has a slightly different physics engine, and different approach to border crossings, and doesn't have hypergrid. Inworlds doesn't have hypergrid. That's something they might look at in the future. And so there's been a little bit of discussion about how this fits in with they want for security and stability and other things, and they weren't able to get the changes that they wanted into mainline OpenSim, which is an issue for OpenSim development because it's kind of been rudderless and a little leaderless lately. I don't even know who to call if I want to get a comment on something happening with OpenSim. Who is, in charge of OpenSim? I don't know. Is it Melanie from Avination? Is it the guys on OS Grid, Dan Banner and his team? I don't know. I should find out.
Well, interestingly,
Right.
I forgot to ask before the show, but James is planning to have a little bit of a developer talk on the show regularly, aren't you, James?
Yeah. I've just a quick summary. So
maybe we can ask them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right. But so the OpenSim community is extremely broad-based. It has lots of different needs and requirements, and the U.S. military is very narrowly focused and has a very specific, narrow set of requirements, and they're obviously very security conscious. So
oddly enough, they are planning to come on both Doug and Barbara. I think it's Barbara, isn't it? About late September, because I'm currently got to go through the security requirements. In other words, it has to go through the Army press corps or something to be approved before they can actually come here. So, and apparently I've triggered an internal discussion on what they're allowed to say and not say. So we confidentially, that is, he says on air. But hopefully near the end of September we'll find out more about this, especially the Halcyon thing.
All right. I posted the monthly stats report, and I'm still working because of the whole mess with Avination. There's several grids that I do not have accurate stats for because they're changing servers. Their servers went down. I'm still waiting for the official word, but the grids aren't totally back up yet, so I don't even know what's going to happen. So that's still a huge mess. I'll let people know through Twitter when it's kind of when I've fixed some of those problems. The Kitely market announced that it has crossed the 10,000 variations mark. 15,000 product variations, over 10,000 of which are exportable to other grids. The way the Kitely market works is that if you have a dress in multiple colors, each of those colors is a separate variation, but they're all under one product, kind of like the way Amazon does it, where you can choose the color and the size. On the Second Life marketplace, every single different color is a different listing. So, so when you're comparing the two markets, you got to keep that in mind. So they have a total of 8,000 products on the Kitely market. So this is different dresses, different shoes, whatever. And of them, there's 15,000 variations. 2/3 of it is exportable. Exportables are growing significantly faster. I mean, the non-exportable content is pretty much staying level at Kitely right now. All the merchants seem to have realized that they're not losing any security by allowing their products to be sold to hypergrid users, to users on the grids, because crooks aren't going to bother to buy the product first. They'll just copy bot it. And the only thing you can't get with copy bots, proprietary scripts, rigging, and animations. So my recommendation for people is that if you have proprietary scripts and those other things, you may want to keep them non-export or sell them only on closed grids. If you don't, then selling on a hypergrid really does not lower your security at all, but does produce a wide new base of customers for you. They're delivering to more than 138 different OpenSim grids right now, and they're delivering to both closed and open grids on the hypergrid and not on the hypergrid. So pretty impressive. And as Mal mentioned earlier today, Kitely also had an improvement that they're dealing with slow loading meshes. Previously, if a region loaded too slowly, Elon would personally hop over and talk to the owner and try to figure out what was going on. And this was getting too hard to do with the growing number of regions that they have and people uploading meshes right and left. So what they decided to do is, by default, if a mesh takes a super long time to load, they switch it to phantom mode. And a phantom mode doesn't interact physically with the world around it. You can walk through it. And so there's no burden on the server to calculate its physics. And some people kind of minded out, and there was a little bit of discussion back and forth. But in general, it's a good thing. It makes regions load faster. And for Kitely, this is very important because regions are put to sleep when nobody's on them. And then when you teleport in, they're loaded up from scratch on an Amazon server. And so they have to load fast. Nobody wants to wait 10 minutes before they can teleport to a region. You want it to be right there. So that's something that's a concern for them. They want to make teleports as quicker as possible, so you can't tell that these are regions that are in the cloud, that are on demand. They feel like always on regions if you can teleport in and it's right there. So that's something that they're working on. Meanwhile, another grid that I talked about in my monthly report is Avination. They are still in the process of moving servers. They said it might take as long as a month to do it. So that's been a hit to the stats as well. Okay, so I think everything else that was OpenSim related had to do with AviWorlds.
Well, no, you've got one big post here that you've missed, and it's called 6 Disaster Management Tips.
That's related to AviWorlds.
Oh.
Okay, no, it would be. It would.
Okay.
You're bracketing them together. Fair enough.
So
Okay, well, yo-yo time.
Quick, let's take a deep breath. Center yourself. Focus on your happy place. And first of all, let me say this is not representative of OpenSim. There are a lot of grids that have been up for years, that have almost no downtime, that tell people ahead of time when there's going to be any kind of upgrades or anything, any services going on, that respond politely to customers, that have never closed, reopened, closed, reopened, closed, reopened, closed, reopened, or had big, huge public fights with their team members. So, in fact, most grids fall into that category. There's a lot of great hosting providers, a lot of great grids. Do not think that this is all of OpenSim. This is one epicenter of controversy that is in OpenSim, and it's
says it all.
It's one. So, AviWorlds is a grid that has been shut down 8 times by its owner, Alexandro Pomposelli. And many times when he shut the grid down, he said, I give up, I'm never doing this again, closed his social media accounts, gave no warning to residents, and everybody's like, all my regions, all my stuff, my inventory, my virtual currency, it's all gone. So history of doing this. And so I am not sure why anybody still is hosting with this guy, but they are. And so AviWorlds has been back up, and he has a hosting company, Avi Labs, that provides hosting to other grids as well, including a grid called Genesis, a grid called Baller Nation, a grid called Loft Virtual Worlds, and Sinful Grid. So those were his big brand name customers. Again, I don't know why the grids decided to host with Alex. You know, they must have had.
You just said, by the way, that AviWorld's back up, but I saw a post from Josh Bohm on Google Plus saying that it's turned off again.
It's still down.
Yes,
yeah.
Yesterday.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Right. Okay.
So,
yo. Up down.
So about 3 weeks ago, Alex disappeared off the face of the earth, and nobody could reach him. His CTO, Josh Bohm, couldn't reach him. He hadn't been paid in a couple of months. The servers were allegedly not being paid for. There's dispute. This is disputed. People going back and forth on this.
Wow.
And everything started shutting down. Not all at once, but piece by piece. So some grid customers had their grids shut down, others didn't, or some regions were down, others weren't. Everybody starts emailing Alex what's going on, emailing Josh. Josh is trying to put out the fires. And so this is just horrible. Alex reappears, says that he was moving, so he had no connectivity at all for anything, and that his servers were hacked, his bank accounts were hacked, his PayPal was hacked, his Facebook was hacked, everything was hacked, which is a problem, you know. Why was everything hacked? Anyway, let's not go into that.
I think we need to concentrate on the results and what is,
right,
rather than all the rumors and reasons.
Yeah. So at this point, Alex, being Alex, starts a fight with his customers, starts a fight with his employees. His customers, namely Genesis, leave, and Genesis leaves and takes Baller Nation with them and starts their own grid hosting company. Josh, after being called a hacker and a thief and everything else, leaves and starts his own grid called Digital Leisure. So like everybody leaves Alex. Alex tries to salvage something from this by saying he has new money. He's got some big name real world backers. He's going to offer a free region to everybody. And then his grid goes down, it seems to be permanently. His customers are complaining and screaming, oh no, my region is gone, everything is gone, like they have the 8 previous times. And Josh, in an extremely unusual, unprecedented move, tells people in an email to the Aviworld's customer list. This is a customer list for a company that he has left. So he's got their customer list. He sent them everybody an email saying that he will recover, quote, recover, unquote, people's regions for them from Aviworlds and set them up on his new grid, which is extremely bizarre, right? And I double checked with him several times. Are you sure you want to do this? This doesn't sound legal. And he told me, I don't care about the legal issues. Well, I mean, I'm trying to do this for my customers, for the residents, which is
actually, presumably, if a customer regards Aviworlds as having gone out of business, and Aviworlds were simply hosting their regions, they were customers, then they are in perfect rights able to give that content to a new grid provider. And and if Josh, isn't it, can get that content up for them, I would have thought that's perfectly legal, because Aviworlds didn't own the content; they simply provided the platform in which that content resided.
The thing is though, that either Josh has copied all that content before he left, so that he has it to reactivate regions for people. Which you're not supposed to do when you leave a company. You're not supposed to take a copy of all their assets with you when you go. Or he's going to go back into the Aviworld servers where he does no longer have permission to access to get that content out of them. Again, not something he's supposed to be doing. So either way, now if I am a region owner...
But is he copying? Is he taking his former company's assets, or is like setting up new law firms or whatever? Is he simply taking the client with him and therefore has permission to retrieve the client's assets?
Again, you're not. If you for this law firm situation, if before you go you download the customer list before you start the law firm, you're going to get sued. And if you download copies of all your customers' contracts that your old law firm set up, you're going to get sued. Now, if the customer gives you copies of all this, so if a resident of AviWorlds logs into AviWorlds, makes a backup of all their stuff and uploads it to the new grid, that's fine. Maybe they might even give their access permission to somebody to go in for them and do it for them. Maybe that's marginal. There's been lawsuits back and forth about this, whether you can do that or not. But Facebook AviWorlds is down, so there's no legitimate way to currently get this content out. Alex says he's going to bring AviWorlds back up. The only thing he's trying to fix right now is the security. He doesn't want Josh to be able to log back into his servers and cause trouble for him, so he wants to lock that down. Once that grid is back up and people can make downloads of their regions, can get backups, then the people can move those regions anywhere they want.
Sure.
But to have those regions somehow recovered while that grid is down by an outside third party sounds there isn't enough.
Put it this way: it seems to me, I'll use Linden Labs as an example because they are notoriously possessive about what's in their walled garden. I know when I sign terms of service with Linden Labs that actually, although technically I own everything I create, it is damn difficult for me to back it up and redeploy it somewhere else. I'm far better altering offline and then deploying in multiple places as I want to. Now, however, in a standard way, if I haven't signed terms of service giving those rights away, which is would be unheard of, I think, in OpenSim, then basically I own what I created, and although I appreciate fully that you're saying that the tech guy, Josh or whatever, can't actually go into a grid that he's no longer working for, or B, take stuff out of that grid before he left, that I agree with. But as a customer, I could go to Josh and say, right, I want to redeploy all my creations on your new grid, and I give you permission to acquire my material to deploy, and this is where it is. So it may be that Alice can be compelled on my authority, as it were, to release those assets to be deployed in the new grid.
Right, but you still have to deal with Alex about getting that done. Plus, there's another factor. If you download a full region, some of the content on there is stuff that you've created yourself. But other content on there, maybe the grid's content or content that you bought from third parties.
Sure.
And as we discussed with Frank earlier, you typically, unless you have a specific license in your hand, you cannot just take that content to another grid. So I think that this is a really bad way to start a new company, by telling people that you're not going to abide by the law. Extremely bad. Instead, I want to point people to how. Well, that's weird.
Can I jump in for a second real quick?
I was actually going to say that, actually, because you're in chat here. Yeah.
From what I've heard from Josh, and Josh used to work for our company as well prior to going on his journey with Alex. From what I've heard and what I've seen recently posted, that Josh was an owner of AviWorlds, that he was an owner of that virtual world with Alex. Therefore, Josh and Alex are equally ownership. They both have equal rights to whatever was there. And also, from what I understand, Josh had the servers. They were Josh's servers with Josh's license keys, and that Alex was paying on Josh's account. I know previously on my own work with Josh is that he had his own servers as well. And and his servers, I didn't want to use his servers myself because I had my own, but I do think Josh has his own servers, and it could highly be possible that everything was running on Josh's servers and that Josh was a part owner of AviWorlds. Therefore, that's giving him the right that he calls to handle these issues with the customer.
No, it still belongs to AviWorlds.
Again, AviWorlds was never a corporation. It was just a partnership agreement between Josh and Alex.
Right, but in the terms of service for the content, did the creators intend for their content to be moved to a differently named grid.
Well, only with their permission.
Maybe that's why Josh is asking them if they want to move their content to another grid. He's asking.
Right, but again, if you move an entire region, there's other stuff on there that might belong to other people.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So that's going to be a significant filtering issue right there. He hasn't addressed that. But the whole ownership thing is, I mean, that's one of those messes. I think that we're not going to know because there isn't enough at stake here to have legal on the record processes taking place. Nobody's going to go to court over this because there's too little money involved.
Yeah, I think to be wise here, I think our attitude has to be just to see what happens and report on the news when it does. Clearly, there's a lot of antagonism behind the scenes here, which I think we just need to stay clear of, to be honest.
I do want to point people to DigiWorlds. Terry Ford left Third Rock Grid about a little over a year ago and started his own grid, DigiWorlds. But instead of this blowing up into a huge scandal, he continued to work with the Third Rock team. In fact, he still does technical stuff for them.
And here as well.
Yeah, and here on the Grid Canadian, I've never heard any bad words said. There was also an ownership dispute over DigiWorlds, and people were upset briefly, but then everybody calmed down, worked things out, issued public statements that they're amicable and they're going to continue working together and so forth. So very different way of approaching this. Cleanly, without any controversy, without any name calling, without even a hint of any kind of impropriety or legal issues, that kind of thing. And so it's possible to do that. And
I've just got some breaking news here, if it's right. We got somebody here who's just informed us that Third Rock Grid is offline. Interestingly. Yeah. They must have been prompted by your mention of Terry and Third Rock Grid. Never mind. That may be breaking news, and either that's or well, I presume that's the case.
I don't see any announcement of grid maintenance coming up. Normally they announce it.
Right. Yeah. No. So there's somebody in chat here in our audience. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so DigiWorlds had a little bit of problem this summer with DDoS attacks, and the grids did have outages, but they responded by being polite to their customers, by letting them know what was going on, by trying to get the grids back up, by working with their hosting providers, by improving the technology, and all those grids still exist. As you can see, Great Canadian Grid still exists, DigiWorld still exists, Third Rock hopefully still exists. So it is possible to do this and have a good reputation. And this is where the disaster management tips that I posted have to do with this, with preparing for the worst case scenario, having backup plans, having a communication method in place, keeping it civil, and then figuring out what you did wrong, fixing it, moving on. So it is possible to do. Good businesses do this. They know how to do this. They do this. They maintain good relationships and good communications. So when people think of them, they don't have a bad taste in their mouths. So that people want to do business with them and continue doing business with them in the future. And so I'm sure Alex will be back up with AviWorld sooner or later. Again, I'm telling people, if you want to do stuff with AviWorlds, make sure you have your own backups and do not invest more time or money than you can afford to lose. And again, backups. Have your own backups. So when the grid goes down, you have a copy of your region. You can just go somewhere else. You can upload it to Atek. You can upload it to OS Grid, or you can upload it to Metropolis, or you could have a hosting company host it for you. There's many of them, or you can go to Kitely. Lots of places you can go if you have an OR file export of your region.
It's what you say actually is good practice regardless of AviWorlds. If you're going into something, make sure you're protected and backed up before investing.
Leslie just made a good point in our local chat. This is Leslie Kling from Tangle Grid.
Yeah.
Double check that your grid has backups available.
Oh, yeah.
That you are able to get a copy of your region either via support ticket or a self-serve kind of web management panel. This is kind of really important if you do a lot of building, if you do a lot of creation, if you plan to buy a lot of stuff and keep it on your region. This is really something that you want to do. And if you are a creator, frankly, what I recommend is that you set up a version of OpenSim on your home computer, do all your creations locally in kind of like a virtual warehouse that you have at home, and then upload it to the grids where you plan to sell them, distribute them, or use them. Yeah. And if you don't want to have it hosted locally, for example, you have a lot of coworkers working on projects together, then go with a hosted option that allows you to take instant backups. Frank can address this about CloudServe. I know on Dreamland, they have a web panel where you click a button and you get an OR download. Do you guys have that as well?
Here on Canada, you do that, but also they keep 5 days of incremental backups automatically. So, it's, yeah, you can always get that stuff here. You were asking Frank, I guess.
I was asking Frank if he had like that kind of backup for CloudServe. Yeah.
Yeah, CloudServe has it where where the customer themselves can turn on or off backup automatic, where they can set the time of day that they would like the backup to happen, and the backup happens automatically. Sometimes they might have regions that they don't change, and there's no sense of filling up the hard drive with backups, because they also are renting a server with CloudServe with a set amount of hard drive space, so they don't want a lot of hard drive space being consumed. But Can
they get a copy of that backup file for themselves?
Yes, instantly. They can click right on the menu. They can click make a backup right now. It'll instantly make a backup. They can download that backup. They can upload new ones.
Yep.
Yeah. CloudServe has that all built in.
Yeah, very critical. If you do a lot of building, do not use a hosting provider or a grid that does not allow you to get regular backups. And for Leslie just asked about closed grids. What do you do on a closed grid like Inworld or Avenation or some other place, but maybe it doesn't have the backup functionality? You can export individual objects you create through the viewer. So if you build something, there's like a download. So you're saving the object file, not the whole region. When you build stuff, again, you can build stuff on a local grid or local like mini grid that you run on your home computer or a hosted computer, and then upload that content, those individual pieces of those content to that closed grid. You will not be able to save your entire region on a closed grid. There were a couple of companies that were offering that ability to do that for Second Life, where they would go in and use some kind of proprietary tool to do a copy bot of an entire region and create an OR file for you, so you could take a Second Life region into OpenSim. But this was very problematic and it was definitely in violation of Second Life's terms of service agreement.
I mean, I mean, not all closed grids will prevent you keeping ORs, but they might. It's basically
you have to check with the grid before investing a significant amount of time in building. Will they let you have your own backups of your own builds?
Sure.
Now, I understand a grid might not want you to save their own proprietary stuff and the stuff that's only sold for use on that grid, but you should be able to have some kind of mechanism for saving your own stuff.
I'm just being asked if I can't get my ORs, but as far I can get. I've got all files of all 12 regions here.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's it's down to the grid you make a deal with. If you go with a friendly grid and they want to allow you all this, you're fine. Now, there's they should allow you.
If you're a commercial grid and you're worried about content exports, you can filter the ORs. Kitely does this, and in fact, they donated a code. So when you make an OR of a Kitely region, the only content that gets saved into the OR is content that you have the right to export, either things that you've built yourself or content that has export permissions that you bought from somebody else. And so this is possible, and other commercial grids can look into this as well, so they can offer this to their customers.
Okay.
So that's the latest. So bottom line, if you want to do stuff with Genesis Grid or with Digital Leisure, the two new grids that have come out of all of this, be careful. A lot of name calling and stuff back and forth. So it's not great PR for any of these grids. Before going into any kind of business deal, make sure you're going to be able to have backups. And again, when AviWorld comes back up, first thing you do, make your backup. Seriously, backups. And
go to Atek Grid. You can have control of your own stuff there.
Okay, I think we better start.
That is my roundup for the stuff that I've been doing in OpenSim over the past couple of weeks.
Hypergrid stuff. Okay, great. Now I'm just going to quickly move to James. I don't know whether James has any developer kind of stuff he wants to bring in at this point.
I did attend the meeting last week, and my main point was just to check with the folks there about covering the meeting on the show, and everyone seemed very open to it. And I just have a couple of comments. One of the big issues of discussion was about the article of thinker Selby Evans, the New Media Arts kicking in money in some fashion to OpenSim. People still speculating what that actually means, but there was discussion of that there. An interesting thing was discussion about the map tile servers, and I've noticed this going to a lot of grids, that you don't get images on the map tiles, and there's some there's some work on the Warp 3D map tiling engine, so that's something that they're looking at. There was some discussion about OSCC. People there were asking what are the dates, and so I was able to share some of that with them. And there was a brief discussion about what grid version they're hoping to have available for the conference. And then there was a little bit of discussion about Bento Project, The Bones, coming to OpenSim and to the viewers in particular.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah,
right, so it's not just it's not just Linden World that's going to have that.
yeah, that's in discussion at the meeting, and then there were a couple new attendees at the meeting, and there was a good discussion there about how the developers communicate on IRC, and so again, these notes are publicly available. And go to the opensimulator.org website and look for the developer's home, and then look for the office hours page, and all of the logs from these meetings are posted there. And so, a pretty good meeting. Pretty good material.
Great. Quite a lot in there. You sent it too, actually, the map tiles and
Oh, they cover a lot of stuff, right?
So they are getting a lot of these little invisible things. Well, they're not invisible, actually, sorted. Yeah,
and it's an open meeting. I mean, anybody can show up who wants to, who's curious, and
Did you by any chance get the impression there is what you might call, these are all volunteers, it's all open sim and everything, but did you get the impression there is like a guiding hand, like somebody sort of leading the team, so to speak? I don't mean in charge in any formal way, but somebody who's kind of got a grip on the whole thing, who sort of coordinates things?
I have to say I do have that impression, and one of the things that I mentioned to the people attending is that I really didn't want to mention particular names, because anyone can go into the logs and find that out. But it was interesting. There was a discussion there where people are asking who are the core developers, and so even so this is a public meeting, office hours for anyone who wants to attend. It is still kind of a question. Where is it? Where does the guidance? Where is it sitting? And there are a lot of very strong contributors. Obviously, I mean from a whole variety of places.
Right.
But one of the issues I've been trying to read up on myself is just in open source software in general. What are some models for support and for resourcing and for guidance? And related to that, you might have had this in your feed, but there's a story about Linux basically is living right now on one core developer, one core company that's keeping it going. So I don't know. There probably is no typical model for this. It's open source is what it is. Yeah.
And also the sheer variety of issues that they must be discussing. I would imagine somebody reads those logs and has thoughts on a particular issue, they will see from the person talking about those issues, who would seem to be the person to contact.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And if anybody is watching this and wants to cover these events for Hypergood Business, please, please step up. Let me know.
Yeah, I think James said he would do a companion column for you, but we'll phase that in slowly.
Yeah. I'm doing the best I can. I'm a novice, so
Yeah.
put what I can
This
here.
is a great opportunity, by the way. If you're a developer or a builder and want to get your name known, then each of these columns will have your bio and your links at the bottom of them. So it's like a big free ad that people interested in OpenSim development would be reading and would see you associated with that. So
So there you are. Marie's giving you the perfect reason. You get an ad.
well, yeah, I mean that's true for anybody. I mean, a lot of companies submit expert columns about how to do stuff, especially in the VR space. I'm getting a lot of submissions right now, and I've been running some of them that are more useful and less marketing-ish, you know.
Yeah.
So the bigger companies know that they need to do this, that this is a great way to get free publicity and get their name out. I recommend the same thing to any developer or consultant working in OpenSim, that this is a great way to establish yourself in public as an expert who provides valuable services to the community and get some brownie points, you know, from people that, you know, they're doing something to help. And it can be really good for developing reputation. I've also checked the grid status on Third Rock Grid, and it does seem to be up.
Oh, okay. So maybe we're misinformed on that.
Or
okay.
somebody had problems logging in, because like individual people will they're always some people
actually
have some problems
that even happens in Canada here sometimes. Somebody will pop up on their network saying Canada's down, and of course it was for 30 seconds. You know. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on, because we've got the regular news and stuff to catch up on, and everybody feel free to comment as we go through.
Oh, Mel, let me mention also, I'm going to need to leave kind of promptly at the top of the hour at 2 p.m. SLT. So
right.
Just as best as we can. Yep. Thanks.
As best we can. Okay. Let's try and move through these quickly then. Okay. If you want links throughout the week or even last week, if I don't get around to them because of time, then follow me at twitter.com/Malburns, MALBURNS, all one word. Now, my headline of the week actually is a post from Friday, though I actually featured it some other, maybe even up to a week ago, the general court case. But how's this for a headline, folks? How virtual reality pigs could change the justice system forever. Any of you got a clue what I'm talking about?
Not a clue.
Well, no, right. Well, basically, an animal rights activist, Anita Krajnicki, back in June, gave some water to 190 pigs in a slaughterhouse-bound truck. And I won't go into what the truck driver said to the woman concerned, but apparently this woman is in Canada, in the Ontario Court of Justice, charged with mischief for the deed. And she's trying to argue that it was an act of compassion for overheated animals, regardless of whether they were going to the slaughterhouse or not. But in order to prove this, apparently the judge is being compelled to don a virtuality headset and experience life as a pig. And you know, why is this not a perfect use for virtual worlds?
The empathy machine. Yes.
Yes, I just think that's great. You know, because apparently it's a virtuality thing, which is filmed from the life of the pig in that 2-foot square cell or whatever off the slaughterhouse. And you know, what better way to put the judge in get the message across in her defense. And I'm with her all all the way on this, but that's just my feeling. But what an intriguing use of necessant virtuality there. Okay, popular science. I'm going to have to leave you to follow my links this week because of time. We just heard. I'm not going to open too many of them. I'm just going to point you to the places. New rules of physics apply in Leap Motion's latest development. Leap Motion, the gesture device, has a lot of plug-in material that, especially for the Unity development engine, which increases, the range of physics available in virtual worlds when you're using Leap Motion. Can virtual reality help to expose conservation issues? This was an article at Envirotech-online, so Envirotech-online.com. Stimulating, unusual, and immersive. That's what they call virtual reality there. The Huffington Post has an article, all these are today, by the way, 10 VR predictions from Silicon Beach Festival. And I don't know what Silicon Beach Fest was, to be honest. It's one of those festivals I never heard of, or hasn't come on my radar. But anyway, there's 10 VR predictions going along with it. And Roblan VR also had, of course, out earlier today their weekly virtuality review. They just look at the new hardware and stuff. It's about a 5-minute clip on YouTube. Very interesting. Right, moving further on. The other interesting thing of the week, apparently PlayStation VR has sold out faster during the course of the week than any other hardware ever at the GameStop chains, selling platform devices. So rapid take up of that. And I have noticed in several of the posts recently that developers working on these things really are beginning to show a favoritism for HTC Vive over and above Oculus, which I thought was interesting too. I don't know how PlayStation fits into that, but we'll see. Right, TotalJobs.com had an article about a one-woman's mission to demystify tech and using virtual reality. What else? Virtual reality marketing predictions for 2016 and beyond. This is courtesy of a site called Philip. It's Philip. I'm going to spell it PHILLIPALEXEEV.com. Philip Alexev, I guess the guy's name is. And basically marketing predictions for this year and beyond where VR is concerned. We've covered digital leisure, of course, already. I've got it in 2 feeds by the look of it here. Voicesofvr.com, a great podcast. There's usually about 1 or so, even occasionally 2 a day. Number 425 had highlights from the SIGGRAPH VR Village with Denise Quesnel, who she be, but basically it's just covering all the stuff that was in the VR Village. As SIGGRAPH, and it's about an hour-long audio, if I remember. A real game changer, how virtual reality is helping amputees, 3D VR Central. You'll have to go to my link for that because it tells me nothing here. Right, not very helpful. And it's a retweet, that's why. And I also retweeted applemust.com. Apple as in the company, must as in must-have.com. Millions of Americans will buy an Apple VR headset, a survey suggests. Apparently they did a survey, and I think it was something like 30% of all Americans said if Apple made it, they'd buy it. Okay. Wake up, Tim Cook. Right, this is another one on the a more general article on virtuality will place judges and jurors in the middle of crime scenes without leaving the courtroom. This is a more general idea of using virtual reality recreations as evidence in court, pigs notwithstanding. Mm-hmm. How do you make a film experience more than VR? Use a 360 dome. This is something else that was at SIGGRAPH with V-Ray 3D rendering software. Apparently it's a virtual environment sort of projected into a kind of dome. How to avoid mistakes when filming in VR. This is at virtualreality-news.net. Any of you doing filming or anticipating filming in these 3D environments, some clues as to what not to do. Right, David at Hypergrid Business, actually. Intel previews all-in-one headset with gesture controls. Maria didn't mention that, so I'll stick it in.
That's a good one.
Sketchfab, largest social media site for 3D objects, has now added VR navigation. Sketchfab is one of those places that's like an image library for 3D objects, but they've now actually converting the whole site into, well, basically using the 3D metaphor site. So you find your objects in 3D, other than, instead of looking for a 2D catalog at 3D objects, if you see what I mean, which I'm sure you do. The promise of virtuality in higher education. This is an article at er.educourse.edu. Educourse is spelled EDUCAUSE. So it's er.educourse.edu. Sony is to launch a multi-platform VR media service. Sorry, that's for my business too, come to think of it. Sorry, Maria, I'm hijacking you. Yes, for their VR stuff, of course. Slashgear.com has an article on something called The Wolf. This is a Kickstarter kind of project, which will empower Macs and MacBooks for gaming and VR. Apparently, this is an intermediary device that will basically enable you to plug things like an Oculus or whatever into a Mac, which at the moment can't support. It's sort of an interim kind of graphics card is the best way I can describe what I understood about that. Gearbrain.com has a gamer's guide for buying the best VR headsets. How many they cover, I don't know. There must be about 1 million pages to that article by now. How VR is rewriting the rules of storytelling. This is yet another post. I'm very interested in this. This is sites I haven't heard of them before. They're just called newatlas.com. So it's new as in brand new, and atlas as in the thing with maps in it. Newatlas, all one word.com. More highlights from SIGGRAPH, lurking here, there, nowhere. Top 10.
Malcolm, interject for just 1 second?
Sure.
The Gear Brain.
Yeah, I'm reading that one too, Maria.
I think I wrote that.
Oh, did you?
I've been writing a lot of stuff for Gear Brain about VR lately.
Oh, well, wonderful. So you got another plug to one of Maria's many tendrils. You must come on. We need a spider avatar for Maria, don't we?
Well, and where's the byline, Maria?
They might have like added some stuff from other writers as well.
Okay, yep.
I think they turned it into a slideshow. That's what it is.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah.
And the byline is on this article here. I'm posting the link.
Okay.
So that's the full article.
Moving on. I'm not being rude. It's just the time. Top 10 lessons learned using virtual reality in hospitalized patients. This is an article by Brennan Spiegel with lots of letters after his name, and it's at MyGHealth. MyGHealth.io. MyGHealth.io.
That is a great article, by the way. Lots of useful information in there. I'm trying to contact the author to get reprint rights. I've called his university, and I haven't heard back yet, and I'll be following up. So hopefully, cross my fingers, we'll be able to rerun it on Hypergrid.
You know, when you jumped in there, I thought you were going to say, that's a great article, I wrote it.
I wish, yeah.
That's great.
Okay, a post at medium.com, a post where people write lots of essays, basically. Microsoft and Intel's new baby, Project Alloy. This is Microsoft and Intel moving into the VR space and using Strata as a biometric data set as a control scheme. And, read it if you want, at medium.com. Quite a lot of good articles there. How to use Firefox for web browsing in VR. This is an article at vrfocus.com. Firefox, of course, is a very popular web browser, and apparently you can do things in Firefox that will allow you to actually browse appropriate sites in VR using facilities in Firefox. not Firestorm, Firefox web browser.
Mm-hmm.
Virtual reality gives patients a room with a view. This was at sbs.com.au. Long-term patients in Australian hospitals are being kitted out with virtual reality gear to keep them amused while they're spending a long time in bed. And actually, I don't know where you play computer games or even in open sim platforms and Second Life and stuff, you sometimes wear a HUD that looks like a control panel at the bottom of your screen. And what I thought was really funny about this article is it shows a tropical beach, but at the bottom of the screen where a HUD might be, it shows the lower end of their hospital bed. So it looks like it makes it look like you're driving a hospital bed through the virtual world. But well, I think if I was in that position, I'd rather not see the bed as to remind me where I really was. Anyway, virtual reality explained for kids, VR for everyone. This is blog.cospaces.io. Cospaces is CO, spaces or one word. So blog.cospaces.io. 7 mind-blowing predictions about virtual reality in 2017. This one, including a picture of outer space, because of course they are sending VR cameras up into orbit. So I don't know kind of what resolution they'll get at that height, but never mind. The article is that be there in. Be as in to be, not to be. Be dash there as in go there. And then .in. I'm not sure what part of the world IN is in either, for that matter. But anyway,
My picture on your tweet shows someone with a headset that says Tinder on it. Isn't Tinder a dating service?
Interesting. Is that on the kids one or the predictions?
The 7 mind-blowing predictions. Yeah.
I didn't actually open it. I think there is actually, Maria will probably know, I think there's actually a headset called Tinder, but you're right. I think it's also a name of a dating thing or something like that. Interesting.
I haven't heard of a headset named Tinder.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's a dating service in orbit.
In virtual reality.
Yeah, you sort of get an exclusive date on the space station and have virtual reality view in orbit.
Buying a company that's in augmented reality. Augmented reality right now is something like the Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Where you're looking through your cell phone and virtual stuff pop up.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very likely fit
for Tinder.
For Tinder. For example, you can hold your phone up and it'll give you an arrow showing where your match is. So you can walk in their direction.
Right.
Which could be useful if you're in a city and you see somebody nearby and you want to meet up with them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, very good. Okay, Silicon Week. Go on. How Movidius is kickstarting next generation of mobile VR. This is about developing the right way for the future where you won't require owning an expensive desktop PC and it won't even require a phone. It's a few years out, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that article is at techradar.com, techradar, or one word. How are the first VR arcades will bring us together in our own little worlds? This, again, is at TechRadar, and it's about VR arcades where you will go into the arcade like you used to play pinball machines, but you'll be in a VR thing. Right, Leap Motion Beta lets users actually physically pick up VR objects. That's at pcmad.com, much the same thing as the other article earlier. What you see is not always what you get. How virtual reality can manipulate our minds. This is a site called The Conversation, theconversational.com. And intriguing stuff. We are dealing with compellingly immersive experiences here, and who knows what it can do to us. Right, sensitizing development challenges through virtual reality. This is blogs.worldbank.org. It's a post at the World Bank, interestingly enough. So blogs.worldbank.org. Right, VRLA, that's Virtual Reality Los Angeles Summer Expo. Keeping VR human. These are this is actually a video from YouTube from VRLA, and I've got several up at the same time, in fact. Also, another session called You Are Here, Believable Spaces in VR. And a rather fascinating one if you're into the deep stuff, and that is how neurons react to virtual reality. Okay. Right, so another hyper good business there. I'll leave it to Maria. The evolution of virtuality. This is actually just an infographic which starts in, I believe it was about 1928, believe it or not, which surprised me. It's you can find it at a site called valuewalk.com. That's value as in good value for money, and walk as in using your legs. Valuewalk, all one word.com. Resounding thud followed by a slow rise. Why VR is coming back with a vengeance. You'll find this at Inc. magazine, INC as in incorporated, inc.magazine. I guess magazine is now a suffix as well. See what you find. Right, we mentioned Kitely earlier. Lovely one for Maria here. Virtual reality has a new female mafia, and they're looking for new recruits. This is an article. This is an article in Marie Claire magazine.
And they mentioned me. Yay!
Yeah, Marie Claire magazine. An article by Kelly Tully. You're the female mafia. Good grief! I got the dancers on my show.
I am the female mafia. Yes. I am the founder and president of Women in Virtual Reality, and they mentioned me and the organization in the article. And as a result of that article, about 24 women have emailed me asking to join WVR, and they've become members.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Oh, good on Marie Claire there. Yeah.
It's also been mentioned in Fortune magazine too.
Okay, you can read out all your mentions in a minute. Let me finish.
Those are the two major ones. You can move on.
Okay, 50% of developers are self-funding virtuality projects. This is to applause.com, arc.applause as in clapping your hands.com. And, in this days of startups, hunting around for venture capital and everything else, it appears that out of virtuality projects, over 50% of the developers are actually self-funding. They aren't actually relying on venture capital, which is kind of interesting. Amazon's free Lumberyard game engine, sustained by AWS cloud services. This is another podcast from voicesofvr.com from a few days back. And let me see. Ford, AMD, and Philip Rosedale's High Fidelity will be presenting at the... Oh, sorry, I'm hijacking Maria again. Sorry, I didn't see the small print. The Immerse conference, anyway. Virtuality may look cool, but it will feel empty without community. This was an absolutely great article that got retweeted a lot by a woman called Claire Evans, writing in The Guardian. So you just look up The Guardian on Google and I guess look into Tech Bit probably. I don't have a direct link, but this was an absolutely excellent article saying, if there's no community in there, it's going to feel very empty. And of course, that's what the Hypergrid and OpenSim and other worlds are all about, virtual worlds where we engage. We don't just go on visual surround vision wonders. Virtual Reality Dash Newsnet, how marketers can integrate VR into their campaigns. Marketing, I don't know. Synchronized virtuality heartbeat triggers an out-of-body experiences. This is a site called corespirit.com. New research. Well, you read it and see. If you want to astrally project yourself, use VR to do it or something. Corespirit.com is CORE, then spirit, all one word, corespirit.com. Voicesofvr.com, yet again, had an interview with a chap from the Kronos Group, is President Neil Trevor, talking about GLTF, which is described as the JPEG for 3D objects. And it's I believe it's a web compatible also 3D format. And they also in 423 they have VR design best practices with Google VR's Alex Farborg. I did say they have a lot of these things every week, don't they? Telling stories with my stylus has just collapsed on me. Never mind. I'll try and do it another way. Voicesvr.com also had an article telling stories with improv acting in Mind Show. And yep, I think that's just about it. Yes, we're back to 6 days ago.
Wow.
And we're back to a post with last week's show. So with that,
Very
I guess
fast.
I can swap. It was a quick roundup, but I was very aware of the time you mentioned, James. So
Thank you. Yep.
any thoughts, by the way, from our guests, Frank and Toni, just before I hand back to Maria on any of that news, or
Sorry, no, nothing for me. I had my mic muted, but nothing else from us, from me at least.
How much? I have a question.
Yes.
How much do you think VR will have an impact on your grids?
Me, the people that I deal with, the real life businesses, they don't think VR is going to work for them at all. When it comes to somebody going into a PetSmart store and buying dog food, they would like the idea of a 3D environment with an avatar to walk into the store so they can have that in-store experience. But they don't think that the headsets are going to work.
yeah,
That's the feedback
it's got to be something lightweight and better.
I'm
Maria.
kind of really surprised by that because I'm seeing a lot of marketers right now putting up 360 videos on YouTube and giving out these like really low cost, really $1. You can get these if you buy them in bulk, cardboard based headsets, and I'm seeing those popping up pretty much everywhere. They've got tens of millions of units out already in circulation.
I wonder, though, I think there might be a distinction there in what Frank is saying. You basically, you, Maria, are talking about using the VR headsets and especially surround vision as a marketing tool. Whereas I think Frank was referring to actual companies engaging using the headsets in their day-to-day affairs rather than actually marketing. Did I get that right, Frank?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I'm working with retail stores that are wanting to bring back that in-store shopping experience. Because, for instance, like with a pet store like PetSmart, they used to have to walk to the store and go to the back of the store to get the dog food. Now they go online, they click on dog food, and they're gone. They don't walk by all them sales items or high margin items that they want to sell to them. Where with a 3D store, they can experience that, and it can be done without using a 3D headset. They just have to download a 3D viewer, such as Singularity. And that's what we're training the customers to do, is to download this 3D web viewer, basically, which would Singularity, and then they can access the 3D store.
Sure.
Do you have any public examples of that up yet?
We have some videos of the PetSmart store where they actually go inside and doing it.
Yeah, but do you have a place where actual customers can go and do this now?
Not open to the public yet. We're working on some cities, working on Austin, Texas, San Antonio, and also some places in Florida, some cities in Florida, but nothing's ready yet.
Yeah, the demos that I've seen of the virtual shops, like what you talk about with, shelves and stores, those have been in VR, typically with Unity 3D. So you can watch it in a browser, and you get the 360 view. You can use your mouse to turn around and move around in the environment.
They can't click on things to buy things.
Yeah, it's clickable. I think eBay has a VR-based shopping thing that they've got already going in one of the countries. I posted an article about it a couple of weeks ago. And a couple of other companies. The Chinese Alibaba is working on a shopping platform. They demoed it at a conference a couple of weeks back as well.
Okay.
And that's a really giant one. Yeah. Unity 3D seems to be the preferred platform of choice for that, which obviously makes me really sad because I don't know anything about Unity 3D. And
we want it to be open sim.
I want it to be open sim so bad. I spent so much time in open sim.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Maria, any more from? Well, I know I had to ask a couple of your fees there anyway. We literally have about 10 minutes left.
I'm going to go quick. I've got a review up of a generic knockoff viewer that people might accidentally buy. If you didn't know any better, read my review first, then don't buy it. It's something called VR Box 2 3D, and nothing's adjustable. It doesn't have face padding. I bought it because it was cheap and cute. and I'm sad that I wasted the money. Barack Obama's VR video of his Yosemite trip is now up. It's only up on Facebook right now, and on Gear VR. So if you want to see it on YouTube with cardboard, you can't. Hopefully they'll move it over eventually. But they did it with Discover, and I think Discover is a partner with Facebook and Oculus. Okay, so but that's really cool. And there's a picture of Barack Obama wearing a Gear VR headset that's been making the rounds with people doing Photoshop battles on it. So he looks a little goofy, but I'm so proud. President has tried Gear VR. You talked about Project Alloy, Intel's new all-in-one headset. This is really interesting. David wrote an article for us about it. They with some links to their presentation. It was at the Intel Developer Forum, and it's got built-in gesture controls and is an all-in-one headset, so you don't need to connect it to a computer. So very interesting. It's Windows powered. It runs Windows holographic. So expect it to be a little pricey, but no prices have been released yet. Lifelike, a company that makes virtual environments for education, and several of these have been popping up, has now added 3D creation tools to their environments. So you can upload meshes and create a virtual environment that your students can walk around in. So lots of growth happening in that space. Interesting to watch. Again, these are all proprietary, independent platforms, not connected to one another. Not the OpenSim metaverse that I was dreaming of. Very sad. The Rio Olympics had a whole bunch of VR content coming out, 360 videos, but it was all snippets. So it wasn't like you can walk into a virtual version of the Olympic Stadium and walk around in it. But maybe we'll have it 4 years from now. I think there's a very good chance that VR will have developed by that time far enough. So that'd be really cool to see. And we've got some more numbers from analysts. IDC said that augmented and virtual reality will reach 162 billion by 2020. And they also had a separate release that the number of gamers in China is growing fast, and it's a driver for growth in VR system and consoles. And they expect the Chinese gaming to take the lead in VR. And both for the low end and high end headsets. On the low end, there are over 100 different vendors making virtual reality headsets, and they're selling in the tens of millions of units, with thousands of retail outlets selling these, not just in China, but throughout Asia and emerging world, including Africa. These are alternatives to big screen TV and consoles for somebody who already has a smartphone, which is about everybody on the planet right now, and it costs just a few extra bucks to get them a virtual private movie theater, a virtual game console that's not as great as the Rift, but okay for a mobile thing. Plus, of course, pornography. So big driver of this. And on the high-end space, out-of-home gaming is big in the emerging world, where people are used to going to internet cafes. And since people have been getting internet on their phones, internet cafes have been kind of falling in popularity. This is their opportunity. They're now converting to VR cafes. Lots of big announcements coming out. Lots of cafes are investing in high-end equipment, like the HTC Vive, also the Rift, as well as proprietary equipment that's being built in China that's competition to this. They're putting up mini arcades inside shopping malls to drive foot traffic, as people go to e-commerce. They want people to come back. And a high-end virtual reality experience you cannot get by yourself because it's too expensive, but you can walk into an arcade or a mall to do that. So big driver for that. Lots of growth expected.
I'm just trying to imagine Starbucks turning into VR and everybody going to VR porn while they're having coffee. I'm trying to think what would happen.
Well, they're already doing it.
They're already there, right?
Yeah. At least now people won't be able to look over their shoulders.
Right.
What my God!
That's not the point. Their body will forget where they are.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That. Yeah,
I've
that is
seen
one
some.
possible
I've
disadvantage.
seen some. There was a wonderful. I didn't. Oh, I'm getting a lot of echo. I think
Yeah, me
it's.
too.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
it's Frank. Frank, if you could mute when you're not talking, I think we're getting speaker feedback.
Yep. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did have
just
mute on.
a couple more quick things, and I think I'll make it.
Yeah.
Windows 10 is going to support holographic AR and VR next year.
Yeah.
So it looks like Microsoft is going to make the same mistakes they did with mobile, where it tried to push Windows into the mobile space, and it's now has less than 1% of the mobile user base.
I know.
Basically, it's Microsoft is as popular for smartphones as Trump is with African Americans.
No, I don't think they're even that popular, to be honest.
Oh my.
Yep. And and of course the hollow what is it?
HoloLens.
HoloLens costs $3,000.
Yeah.
So they're really whiffing it. I think they're about to lose yet another generation of technological progress as a result.
Yeah, and even Windows 10 is breaking down for enterprise customers. I mean,
Right.
they really have a bit of a problem.
Meanwhile, both Penn State and Sony announced the launch of new VR media channels. For Penn State, it's a free VR. It's a subscription-based VR sports channel, and everybody who buys a subscription gets a free headset. And Sony, theirs is multi-platform. It will run on Sony's own Japanese app to start with, but then they're going to have this media to all the different headsets out there. So lots of investment going on in the VR space. Huge amount of change happening in this industry right now. Very exciting to watch. So and that's it for me.
Great. Okay, well, we're about on time.
Wow. Thank you.
Actually, given how much we got to on this show, I'm amazed we got it into 2 hours. But we have, so
Yeah.
Yay us!
Okay.
Yay!
we're actually sort of on time, as it were. As good as, anyway. Okay, well, given time and everything else, I think we will ramp up. But I'm going to use my usual thing of going around everybody one by one, just to see if they have any final comments on either what we've been discussing or things they forgot to say earlier, etc., etc. So, Frank, any final thoughts from you?
No, everything was great today. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Toni?
No, I'm good.
You're good too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see we've got good, contented guests. Okay, James, anything else?
No, nothing in particular. I'm really happy to be reporting this open sim news, and it's with the developers, and it's given me a little more hope about Open Simulator and the conference also. Very exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, a reminder there, in fact, I announced it last week, Open Sim Community Conference 2016 will be on the 10th and 11th of December. If you're interested, keep your eyes open, and a call for proposals will be going out very shortly, and we'll bring you more information about it as it transpires. Don't remember that coming up very soon, September, in fact, it may be a week from, I'll have to check this, but of course, Avatar Fest is coming up. Very soon. They're on their own grid, I believe, and also Avi Fest, which is Cherry Mango. The arts thing is on Franco grid. I think that may not be till October, but we're heading into that autumnal season now, where things start happening. Everybody's waking up from the summer sleep and getting into things. So we'll bring you all that as we go along. Next week, we will, of course, it's unbelievable how the year is progressing. We'll be in September next week, which means the first Sunday of the month, we'll be back over in ye olde High Street Metaverse thing. Second Live will be live from our studios in Chilbo next week and we'll be back here the week after. So, Maria, any final thoughts? I forgot to include you because you sort of gave your final thought anyway.
If you want to write articles for me, or how-to articles, or headset reviews, and you get free headsets if you want to do headset reviews, email me at maria@hypergridbusiness.com. Again, it's maria@hypergridbusiness.com. If you have a new grid opening or a new hosting company you're launching, let me know. Or if you have big changes happening, let me know about that as well. And if you are developing a viewer for VR, for OpenSim, please, please, please let me know it. I promise, if you want to keep it a secret, I will keep it a secret. I just want to know. I'm desperate.
Me
Please.
too. Me too.
Yeah, and I'm just the same, the urge there to know.
And forget the frame rate. I don't care. I'll do it with this low frame rate. I just want to do it.
Yeah. I want to do it at 2 frames a second, and I'll be happy.
No. I've done it with a slow frame rate. You can tether your OpenSim to a mobile phone, and I've done it. And when the frame rate is too laggy, your body thinks that your vision is swimming in front of you, and that you ate something bad and makes you throw up.
That's true. A good frame rate, but not maybe not the optimal 90 FPS.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that high, but still decent enough to not make people throw up immediately.
Yes,
that's my only request. Not make me vomit right away.
Right.
And to think we may do with 30 in the days of television and movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess that's it. Maria's given you her links, twitter.com/hypergoodbusiness, twitter.com/Maria Korolev. And no, it isn't Maria at Korolev.com.
Actually, that works too, actually.
Oh, does it? Oh,
that
wonderful.
Too. I use that for all my non-OpenSim stuff, like when I write for CSO Magazine and GearBrain and Computer World and so forth. That's my main address for my real life outside of OpenSim.
No wonder you were about to slip up. There's too much to keep control of. Okay, well, with that, we will close until next week. I'd like to thank everybody who's been here today, especially like to thank Frank Corsi or Frank Avatar and Toni Moore, both from Atek Grid. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And
yeah, we've lost Skype.
And oops. Okay.